relationship it shares with the Union. Elections in the northeast makes any dip in the fortunes of the ruling party at the centre extremely significant. The results in Tripura, Nagaland and Meghalaya will provide telling pointers on the sustainability of deeper shifts in India's policy. In Tripura, the BJP-led alliance is set to retain power against combined forces of the left parties and Congress. Voting the challenge from Tipra Motha, which initially threatened to keep BJP off majority mark.
Thank you very much for your this congratulation. And normal, of course, I am very happy. Our party peoples are very happy. And first of all, I want to thank our Honorable Prime Minister, our Honorable Home Minister, our National President JP Nadda जी.
गुबाद्रा ने क्लियरली चुनाव से पहले भी कहा है, अगर हम नहीं जीत पाते तो हम लोग सरकार में तो नहीं जाएंगे, लेकिन विपक्ष में ही बैठेंगे.
Last time, Nagaland had a unique feature of having no opposition. All parties with a presence in the 60-member assembly backed the Nationalist Democratic Party-led government. NDPP+BJP alliance contested these polls with a 40-20 formula, and the four-time Chief Minister looks set for a fifth term.
जो इंक्लूसिव डेवलपमेंट मोदी सरकार ने डबल इंजन सरकार नागालैंड और दिल्ली मिला के दिया है, उससे हम लोग प्रचंड आवाज से हम लोग जीत के आएंगे.
हम मानते हैं कि नागालैंड में विकास को लेके एक ही ऐतिहासिक सरकार रहेगी.
In Meghalaya, BJP contested on all 60 seats for the first time and ran determined campaigns with its big wigs. BJP was a partner in the state government, but ties soured. However, Chief Minister Conrad Sangma has hinted that the two parties can again come together if the verdict throws up a hung assembly.
It looks like we are short, but we'll wait for the final results. But let's hope for the best, and once the final numbers are out, then we'll take it forward.
These elections have shown the mirror to many. The Congress relegated to the fringes and the TMC unable to make mark outside of Bengal. And over the past 8 years, the Bharatiya Janata Party has gradually replaced the grand old Congress party to become a force to reckon with in the northeast region.
And speaking at the victory celebrations at the BJP party office in the national capital, the Prime Minister threw the gauntlet at the opposition and said that this is an acceptance of the people of the northeast of the Saffron party. And more importantly, he said that Delhi se dil ki duri nahi hai for the northeast. Most importantly, he also said there was a time when the BJP was branded as a party of the Hindi heartland belonging to a certain community. Now he says by winning in the northeast, the image of the BJP not being a minority-friendly party has also been shattered. Let's listen in to what the Prime Minister said, and then I'll open this up to our guests.
आज के नतीजे ये दिखाते हैं कि भारत में लोकतंत्र और लोकतांत्रिक व्यवस्थाओं पर कितनी आस्था है, एक मजबूत आशावाद है. अब नॉर्थ ईस्ट न दिल्ली से दूर है और न ही दिल से दूर है. हमने सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास और सबका प्रयास एक नया विकास मॉडल देश को दिया है.
All right, I want to quickly run you through the numbers before we open it up to our guests. Tripura, of course, a great story for the BJP because remember, in 2018, they had won a two-thirds majority with 44 seats. That majority has come down to 33, but just enough to be above the halfway mark of 31. The Left and Congress, two traditional rivals in the state, came together for the first time. They were able to get just 14 out of the 60 seats in the state. Tipra Motha of Pradyut Dev Varman, the former Congress chief of the state of Tripura, he formed a new party, a fledgling party, and straight away in their first election, they have won 13 seats, all 13 gains because the party did not exist up until even 6 months ago. So this is how the map of Tripura looks like. It's a sea of saffron across, particularly this belt, the western belt. This is the belt that sort of borders Bangladesh, where there is a large presence of migrant voters, the Bengali Hindu voters as well. That is a big issue in this particular belt. Whereas in the tribal seats, and I'll just quickly run through that filter, in the tribal seats, Pradyut Dev Burman's party seems to have done extremely well. In fact, all 13 seats they've won in the tribal belt. The BJP had a fall of 11 in that tribal belt compared to 2018. Quickly run you through the other states as well. Meghalaya, where for the longest time it seemed like the Trinamool might have opened its account, and how? Because remember, a large number of Congress MLAs had switched sides to the Trinamool just before the election, but it is the NPP. It only had 20 last time. It was in power in alliance with the BJP as well as the UDP. Now, Conrad Sangma's party increased its tally from 20 to 27. The Congress down to just 5 seats. Remember, in the 2018 election, the Congress was the single largest party. They had 21. They're down to just 5 seats. The TMC, for the first election that they have contested in the state of Meghalaya, they've opened their account with 5 seats. At one stage, TMC was leading in as much as 20 seats, and it was thought that they would end up as the single largest party, but down to just single digits, just 5 seats, the BJP 2 seats. And quickly run you through Nagaland as well, where again it's a straight sweep for the BJP NDPP alliance. 38 out of the 60 seats, again close to a 2/3 majority there for the BJP, up 8 from last time around. Remember, last time around the NDPP was formed after Nefurio split with the NPF. He then joined hands with the BJP and he formed a coalition government. Now that coalition firmed up fully, and the NPF, the mighty Naga People's Front, which had 26 seats last time, down to just 2 seats. So let me now open this up to our panelists. I think what is fascinating about this Northeast election is the BJP has won in alliance in all 3 states, and of course in Tripura on its own. But now the BJP is in power, either in alliance or on its own, in every single state in the Northeast. So what may this mean? Sanju Verma is joining us, BJP National Spokesperson. Advocate Harshpreet Kadyal is Congress Party Spokesperson. Nalin Mehta, Consulting Editor with Network 18 and author of the book The New BJP. Rashid Kidwai, author and senior journalist, also joining us. Let me start with you, Sanju Verma. You heard what the Prime Minister said in his victory speech at the BJP party headquarters. 3 out of 3 for the BJP to win in alliance or on its own, as is the case in Tripura. It is a stellar performance, no doubt about it. The Prime Minister says the distance between the Northeast and Delhi has been bridged because of this victory.
You know, Zaka, first and foremost, thank you so much for that excellent introduction. You laid down the ground rules for the debate by giving out those numbers, which put things in perspective. You know, I just want to say one thing. What the Prime Minister today said, if you notice, he kept talking about the BJP cadre, our organizational strength, about the average BJP karyakarta. He actually compared the average BJP karyakarta to the third eye of Lord Shiva, making the karyakarta as the all-powerful in the overall scheme of things. And I know that the Prime Minister was not indulging in any kind of platitudes or, trying to play to the gallery or to the last common denominator. I just have this to say. If you ask me honestly as the BJP spokesperson, the biggest reason, and I say this, I will back it up with numbers. I think it's the infrastructure story which has unfolded in the last 8.5 years under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, which has mainstreamed Northeast and actually cut down what we used to call once upon a time the tyranny of distance. Okay. And Zaka, without being very verbose, I'll just give you a couple of facts very quickly. I was surprised to find out that Barak Valley in Assam was first brought onto broad gauge only in 2016. Agartala in Tripura, the capital of Tripura, came onto the railway broad gauge only in 2019. And the capital cities of Arunachal Pradesh, Tripura and Assam were also linked with the broad gauge railway network only as recently as 2019. I mean, this was the condition and the state of affairs for more than 6 decades or 5 decades, and Congress has been in power for the longest time at the center during those lost decades. And I'll just quickly add to one thing which nobody is focusing on, apart from the numbers. If you realize, Zaka.
All right, we've lost that audio link with Sanju. We'll go back to her in just a moment. But Harshpreet Kadyal, I think a question begs to be asked of the Congress party. In Meghalaya, in the last election, you were the single largest party. You had 21 seats. You had 21 seats. Today, you're down to just 5 seats. In Tripura, you're again down to just 5 seats. In Nagaland, you've not even managed to open your account. Can the Congress party still call itself the fulcrum of the opposition when it is down to single digits in states where it used to be in power up until a few years ago?
Thank you, Zaka. Kindly allow me an uninterrupted 1 minute. First and foremost, winning is a part and parcel of the game. There was a time back in the day when the Bharatiya Janata Party was at just 2 seats. And today, there are 2 time ki Satta Party. That time changed, so will this time. After the sun sets, it is bound to rise again. It is inevitable. You know, the fact of the matter is that we want to congratulate the Bharatiya Janata Party here. There is one thing that, nobody can take away from the Bharatiya Janata Party, their speciality. Without having delivered anything, without doing anything, they market and advertise really well. We have to give them this commendable job. Add that to the Bharatiya Janata Party. Nobody can take it away. Number 2, we also request that the Bharatiya Janata Party won't repeat the history of center and of the 2 states that they already had, that they have now managed to retain, that they would stop doing away with education, stop doing away with Medicare, stop doing away with employment, start focusing on women empowerment, on farmers, on uplifting backward classes. And not just that, we really hope that the Bharatiya Janata Party would also understand one thing, that the center, when you have a government in the center, it really has a great pull, over the states. So if the Bharatiya Janata Party, may I kindly complete? So the Bharatiya Janata Party, we really hope would do a better job at delivering promises this time.
No,
and
here is again.
Zaka, may I come in?
1 second, madam. 1 second. Here is for me an illustration of the problem, and I'll get Nalin to sort of expand on this.
I can complete what I was saying.
Yeah, I'll come back to you. There are 2 other guests who haven't even started speaking. So, Nalin, here's an illustration of the problem as I see it. To just say that marketing and advertising and gimmicks and, all of these things is what is winning the BJP elections is not only disingenuous, it is actually insulting to the people of the Northeast. I mean, to say that the people of the Northeast have voted for the BJP, and admittedly, they've not won on their own steam in all of these states. In Tripura, yes, but in the other states, they've rode over other bigger regional parties. But to say all of this is marketing, advertising, gimmickry, I'm sorry, you're insulting the average voter of the Northeast, the average voter of these states, Nagaland, Meghalaya, and Tripura. Nalin.
How is this disrespect?
No, 1 second, Nalin.
Nalin,
please. Your name is not Nalin. Let him respond. Yeah.
Zaka, I think it is not very accurate to say this is just marketing and so on, for the very simple reason, while that may be a political belief of those who oppose the BJP, the fact of the matter is the BJP is doing things on the ground because of which it's winning. You can't fool the people all the time. Now, just a simple thing. In this election, the Congress, out of all 3 states, has won about 8 seats. The BJP has won 6x that number, which is just around between 48 and 50 seats, which is the last number that I saw. In Tripura, they didn't have even a councillor before the last election. They swept it last time. This time, despite a once unheard of alliance between the left and the Congress, they have still come back to par. In Nagaland, they've retained 12 seats as the junior partner in the alliance. In Meghalaya, they've retained 2 seats. In Nagaland, their vote share has gone to 18%. I think if you want to take on the BJP seriously as a party opposed to the BJP, you have to first understand the nature of the beast as it were. If you're not going to be in denial, and you're going to be fighting the wrong battles, then you're not going to be able to beat the BJP. The simple point is, the Congress was once the dominant national party in the Northeast. The BJP has now replaced the Congress as the dominant national party in that region.
Okay.
The BJP didn't even had never formed a government in Northeast before 2016. It had not even come second. But now it's in power in multiple states in the Northeast. And I think this is a moment to introspect.
Yeah. Rashid, the issue is that not only is the Congress party having conceded almost wholly the position of the major national party that is prevalent in the Northeast, they are now fast losing the major opposition status as well. Look at just look at Meghalaya, where you are in. You're in Shillong, right? This was, like I said, 5 years ago, it was the Congress that was the single largest party. Of course, I don't want to get into the political machinations by which NPP and UDP and BJP came together. But fact is, they had 21 seats. Today, the Congress is just 5. And the Trinamool Congress, which, this is their first election in Meghalaya, they were not even active in Meghalaya, Rashid, till about, till about a year or so ago, or a couple of years ago. They are on the exact same number of seats as the Congress is. So clearly, the Congress is not only conceding, as Nalin said, the national party status to the BJP, they're also potentially conceding the main principal opposition party status also to other parties in the opposition. Rashid. Okay, Nalin, you want to take that, and then I'll go back to the political spokespersons. Yeah.
So, look, the left got decimated last time in Tripura. The left has come back, despite the alliance between Congress and the left has got significant number of seats in Tripura. You are right about Meghalaya as well. The Trinamool Congress has come in. Now, look, I can understand, there is always this older argument that that politics in the Northeast is smaller states. There is a propensity to align with the party in the center. That's fine. But why are so many congressmen leaving and joining other parties like the Trinamool Congress? The whole thing of Mukul Sangma is exactly that. I think the Congress should look very seriously at why it's not being able to hold its flock together at the ground level where it matters, outside of the larger ideological battle which keeps happening all the time anyway.
Rashid is back, and I think that's a point well taken. Sushmita Deb from Congress leaves to the TMC. Mukul Sangma is again a classic example, former chief minister, a strong man of the Congress party, leaves to join the Trinamool Congress. Pradyut Dev Varman, again, former chief of the Congress in Tripura, leaves to start his own party. I can understand, Rashid, if people are leaving the Congress to join the BJP, in politics you want to be with the party in power, all of that, I can understand that. But people are leaving the Congress more to join other opposition parties than to join the BJP. That is even more concerning.
Exactly.
Rashid.
Absolutely. I think it's you see, one can go and should introspect and think over it. But it's a larger point is it's a very poor reflection on the entire opposition. There are no ifs and buts in politics. But if the Congress, the left and Tipra had fought together with some kind of adjustment or some kind of alliance, perhaps things would have been better. After all, it's just a matter of 5, 6, 7 seats in Tripura. Similarly, in Meghalaya also. So look at the BJP. The BJP today the BJP, every credit should be given to the BJP. But the fact of the matter is, BJP is not winning even 1/3 of the seats it had contested, but is able to, be in the government in all 3 states. The Congress has to be clever, and the opposition has to be clever. We have seen it in Goa. We have seen it in so many states. It's a similar story. There is so much of one-upmanship between Trinamool and Congress, Aam Aadmi Party and Congress. So unless the opposition gets its story right, as Nalin was saying, some kind of strategy has to evolve. And Rahul Gandhi and Congress, they have this open door policy. They don't want to stop anyone. Time of Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, even Narasimha Rao's time, when anybody was leaving the Congress, concerted efforts were made by party managers to prevent that kind of thing. And a lot of people didn't leave the party. But today, I think both Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi, they feel very good. They say, good riddance. Anyone who wants to leave is free to leave.
Again, I don't think, even if, of course, we don't know hypotheticals in politics, but even if left, Congress and Tipra contested together, I think the dynamics of Tripura, the BJP would have won. Perhaps it would have got more than the 33 that it has right now. Left and Congress alone have 45% vote share as per the 2018 elections. 45% vote share should not translate to 14 seats. It should be well more than 14 seats. Congress has won only 5. And the left, all left put together, CPM, CPI, Forward Bloc, everything put together, only 9 seats. In a state where Manik Sarkar was ruling uninterrupted for 20 years, combined left has been reduced to single digits. So I think, and I'll go back to Sanju Verma on this, I come back to what the Prime Minister said. I think the voter in India, whether he's in Karnataka or she's in Tripura or she's in Rajasthan, is responding A, has my life become better in the last 5 years? If the answer is yes, that voter is willing to give the political benefit of the doubt, the political benefit, as it were, to that party that he or she perceives as having improved their lot. I think that is the fundamental difference, that people are perceiving, a large majority of people are perceiving that the BJP government, whether at state, whether at centre, is working for them. There could be a large number of people who also feel that it is not working for them. But that number of people is not acquired anywhere close to critical mass. Sanju Verma.
Zaka, I think you've nailed it. You know, I don't want to sound offensive today because we are celebrating our victories in the Northeast. But I think, you know, the Congress, I pity it. Forget about being a serious contender in any election. They are not even, you know, the principal opposition party. They have been completely decimated. For the Congress spokespersons to come on television debates and say, I need my 1 minute, I need my 2 minutes. I mean, you know, you can show aggression on television channels, but as Prime Minister Modi said a few weeks back on the floor of the Lok Sabha, and I will read out those two couplets which he said, तुम्हारे पांव के नीचे जमीन नहीं है, तुम्हारे पांव के नीचे जमीन नहीं है, पर कमाल तो ये है कि तुम्हें फिर भी यकीन नहीं है. कमाल तो ये है कि तुम्हें फिर भी यकीन नहीं है. You have become the proverbial ostrich. Tell me, Zaka, the Bharat Jodo Yatra ended on 30th January 2023.
Yeah.
Tripura went to the polls on 16th February 2023. Meghalaya and Nagaland went to polls on 27th February 2023. Between 30th January and 27th February, we have all seen visuals of Rahul Gandhi enjoying skiing at Gulmarg. Now he's in Cambridge. He did not find the time to visit Tripura, Meghalaya or Nagaland. And on the other hand, you have people like Narendra Modi, Amit Shah, JP Nadda, who work not 24 but 25 hours out of 24 hours. That is the kind of commitment. You can never take on the Modi juggernaut because you have to first learn to take cognizance of the problem. And the problem in the Congress party is Rahul Gandhi. He is not the solution. He is the key problem which the Congress needs to take cognizance of.
Rashid said exactly something similar in a show a few weeks back, and I had tweeted about it, although, you know, I thought I had a different idea on that. But you know, I want to ask Ashpreet Kadyal this. I think there is a problem. Rahul Gandhi in these 3 state elections went to Shillong once, and he must have spoken at length, but fortunately, unfortunately for him, the part that got picked up was where he ticked off the TMC. Okay, that was the part that was picked up by the media. One campaign in Shillong in the month after Bharat Jodo, not going to Tripura, not going to Nagaland, just one campaign. Now, I know there is a school in your party taking off from what happened in Himachal Pradesh saying, you know, if Rahul Gandhi doesn't campaign, it's actually better. We actually stand a better chance. Now, you have to make up your mind, Advocate Ashpreet Kadyal. Either Rahul Gandhi is your leader, is your mascot, is the person who's campaigning 24/7 like Mr. Modi and like Mr. Shah, or he is not. The problem with the Congress is they can't seem to, and Sanju is right, you know, you can't seem to make up your mind about Rahul Gandhi.
Thank you. Zaka, kindly allow me an uninterrupted minute. One, Sanju Verma said that, you know, they have to seek uninterrupted minutes. I know Bharatiya Janata Party won't understand that, why we have to do that, because you don't go through it. However, you talked of Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Please, Zaka, you too and Sanju Verma also could, you know, give us an itinerary as to what Mr. Gandhi should do, where he should go, what he should say, etc. We'll follow what you say. We'll devise our strategies according to you. We'll basically change everything according to you. Number 3, the purpose of election is coming to the main points. The purpose of election is, at the end of the day, to work for the welfare of the people. We hope the Bharatiya Janata Party would at least understand that now. And the people, you know, were discussing in the morning after the results came out. What will the Bharatiya Janata Party be discussing in the meeting in the evening? Someone said that they'd be discussing not what to do next or on the next day in the coming year. They discuss how do we plan the strategy to win election in the next tenure. Some Bharatiya Janata Party's leaders are so accustomed to giving statements like this that, you know, in the last 3 states election when it happened, they said this: we'll be planning the next
strategy already after winning. That is what the BJP does.
Arshpreet Gharyal Saab, I mean, that is how politics has changed. Politics has now become a 24/7, non-stop, relentless pursuit. And if, you know, your opponent, the BJP, is doing that, I mean, if they are playing T20 cricket and you are still playing Test cricket, you can't hope to win against them in a T20
Not
match.
even Test cricket, gully cricket.
100%.
Gully cricket.
No, so the issue is, I'll give the final words to both Nalin and to Rashid, please. Sir, please. I'm really running short of time on the debate. Nalin, I come back to this. I want to take this forward. The Prime Minister said something which I thought was interesting. I guess we'll need a little more data on that. He said, you look at the 3 states that went to polls in the northeast, right? Meghalaya has 75% Christian population. Nagaland is 85% Christian population. And admittedly, the BJP is not the principal player there. In Meghalaya, they will be riding on the coattails of the NPP. In Nagaland, they will be the junior partner to the NDPP. But the fact that such high minority-dominated states were willing to give the BJP a chance, not once but twice, that's got to say something. Nalin.
Yeah, Zaka, absolutely. In Nagaland, the BJP's vote share now is 18.9%, which is a 5 to 6% hike from the last election. In Tripura, it's got 39% of the vote share in a state which is about 1/3 tribal. So I think one of the key things about these advances in the northeast by the BJP is it allows the BJP to legitimately claim that it's not just a Hindi party. They won once, you could have said it was a black swan event. Now you are repeating these triumphs in Tripura. Before that, we've seen that in Manipur. Before that, we've seen that in Assam. We've also seen that in Arunachal. So what this means is it allows the BJP to say it's a pan-Indian party. It operates very differently in the northeast than it does in the Hindi heartland, but it shows tactical adaptability, flexibility, and a differentiated political strategy which is working for the party. And in states which are overwhelmingly Christian populations like Nagaland, to have 12 seats with an 18-19% vote share, I think is a significant shift in the polity of that state.
I'll give the final word to Rashid. Rashid, I'm really sorry, but in under a minute, I want to take this forward. You have Karnataka coming up next. Congress does stand a decent chance in that state, but given how it's playing out nationally for them, I don't know if it will be Congress victory or hung house or BJP victory. It seems to be more up in the air now than perhaps it was a month or two ago. Then you have, towards the end of the year, you have Rajasthan. I mean, everybody knows what's going on in Rajasthan. I mean, it's as good as a gone case for the Congress. Then you have Madhya Pradesh. It's a state where they do stand a chance. In fact, let's not forget, 5 years ago, Kamal Nath won that state. Of course, after that, the BJP managing to get a substantial number of Congress legislators onto its side and then keeping that state. If the Congress does actually play its cards well, it does stand a chance in Madhya Pradesh. But given what's been happening over the last year, I'm not sure about that anymore. And then you have Chhattisgarh. I mean, where does the Congress party go from here?
I think, first of all, Congress has to understand that they have a grave problem in hand. Then only you can look for a solution. You look at Jairam Ramesh's tweet today. He says that, he's gloating over the fact that Congress has won 3 by-elections, not talking about 3 state elections. There is no response from Mallikarjun Kharge, at least I have not seen. No response from, of course, Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi. This is a problem. Had it been BJP in a similar situation, they would have admitted that they've made a mistake and they need to strategize better or so. So I think this admission, the Congress seems to be in complete denial instead of admitting that they have a great existential, crisis in hand.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. We'll see how the story plays out. Of course, in politics, anything can happen. Tomorrow is a new day and the next election is a new one. But given the repeated pattern that we're seeing for the better part of the last 8 years, I think either the Congress, takes it upon itself to pull itself out of life support and come back and become the fulcrum of the opposition, or simply cede that space to some of the other parties, whether it's the TMC that's now making its mark in the northeast or any other party which may be eminently more capable than the record that we've seen of the Congress party so far. All right, I'm going to move on now to the other big story, and this is a significant one. The Supreme Court today quashed the present system of appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners and ruled that a panel comprising the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India and the Leader of the Opposition will be making these appointments henceforth. Now, this is quite a departure from the current system where only the government decided. There was no say of the opposition or the judiciary. The order has been met with mixed response, some hailing it for bringing it more transparency, others are criticizing it, with the court usurping the government's domain. So are the courts just filling the gap left by the government, or is this a case of pure judicial overreach?
इलेक्शन कमीशन का इंडिपेंडेंट बजट होना चाहिए, इंडिपेंडेंट सेक्रेटरीट होना चाहिए, रूल मेकिंग पावर होना चाहिए।
ये ऐतिहासिक इसलिए है क्योंकि आज संस्थाओं पे 360 डिग्री से इस सरकार का प्रहार है, परोक्ष रूप से या सीधे रूप से।
We have to welcome this judgment. In fact, if you see the director, how CBI director has been appointed, this is they are appointed by a high power committee that the executives cannot appoint this important post.
All right, so this is what the court said, that chief election commissioners and election commissioners have to be appointed on the aid and advice of a panel. That panel will comprise the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition in the Lok Sabha, and the Chief Justice of India. When there is no Leader of the Lok Sabha, then the Leader of the single largest opposition party will play that part. The appointment will be done by the President of India. Now, while the court did say that this will continue to hold good till the law is passed, it is still seen as a setback for the centre, because the court also added that election commissioner's appointment needs to be insulated from executive interference. Now, the centre had expectedly opposed this petition. This is what the centre's contention was, that judiciary cannot interfere in the selection of CEC and ECs. Inclusion of CJI in the process would amount to judicial overreach. Inclusion is in violation of separation of powers. The court can quash appointment if unqualified person is chosen. The presumption that inclusion of judiciary would bring in fairness is wholly flawed. Now, let me go across to both our guests, Ishkaran Mandari, lawyer and political analyst, Ashpreet Karyal, Congress Party spokesperson, joining us. Ishkaran, why do you consider this order today to be flawed? Because if you can choose, CBI directors and Central Vigilance Commissioners basis the same committee recommendation, which many are saying would be fair and transparent because it has one representative of the government, one representative of the opposition, and a neutral arbiter in the CJI, that should be a fair system, shouldn't it?
Zaka, I never said that the order is flawed per se. What I have said is that there are various ways of having transparency. Is the only way of transparency the presence of a Supreme Court judge or the CJI? That is the larger philosophical question in our constitutional scheme of things. Because, of course, while we are talking about a transparent process, and we have had certain election commissioners like Mr. M.S. Gill, who was an election commissioner and then a member of Congress and then a minister in the cabinet. But what is the form of transparency and how should that transparency come about? One of the most important paragraphs of the judgment, which has the committee itself, the Supreme Court says that the parliament, this will hold good till parliament by law brings out a suitable system. And I think if the government wants to, it anyways had the power, but the judgment itself recognizes that power, and they should bring out an appropriate law of how they think of insulating election commissioners, irrespective of whose government is in power, so that going forward, we have a transparent system. And if the political class wants the system to be dealt by with itself, whether it be civil society, whether it be leader of opposition, we are a multiple party democracy. So it can be other members also. So there are multiple options, but the option is for the parliament to exercise. If you remember, the vice president also said about the NJC case that once it was struck down, the parliament didn't have a whisper to speak. So it's for the parliament, the onus is on the parliament and the government. Do they want to bring in a law or are they wanting to accept it?
I want to ask Ashpreet Karyal, what the people who are opposed to this judgment today are saying is, yes, the Election Commission is an independent institution, but the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and election commissioners is an executive appointment. It's an executive decision. If you want to bring in fairness, fair enough. You can have one person from the government and one person from the opposition. But when you bring in a judicial officer, when you bring in the Chief Justice of India, that is judicial overreach. It's not the business of the judiciary to be making appointments or recommending appointments.
Well, says the Bharatiya Janata Party, who apparently considers themselves judge, jury and executioner. Well, sorry, what they say is immaterial because the Supreme Court has already decided on this. And we are bound by what the Supreme Court does. Number two, if the Bharatiya Janata Party does not like it, please challenge it. You're free to do that. But until and unless it's been done away with, you should rather just follow it instead of criticizing it. Because some of your leaders back in the day used to say that Supreme Court is infallible. What happened to that? Stop contradicting yourself. Number two, it's a welcome step. It's a great step. We appreciate it, commend it. And the Bharatiya Janata Party clearly did not want it to happen. They filed a counter affidavit. Back in the day also when we demanded it, fought for it, they always used to oppose it and did that vociferously. And not just that, we really hope that the letter and spirit of this would also be understood by the Bharatiya Janata Party and implemented for the other institutions. And we would also hope that for the Enforcement Directorate, a similar mechanism is adopted. Why? Because the number of raids and the number of cases are too high. There's a massive gap in the number of cases and in the conviction rate. So if we have a better mechanism, like the one for CEC and the EC, probably we.
So can I ask one question? Can I ask one question? Now the judiciary, fair enough, the judiciary has pronounced this judgment, and no one is disrespecting it. Of course, this now becomes the law until otherwise the Parliament passes a law to replace this one or strengthen this one. But what about the opposite should also be true? If the judiciary or the chief judicial officer of the country, the Chief Justice of India, has a seat on the table to decide the Chief Election Commissioner, why shouldn't the executive have a seat on the table to decide judges? The corollary should hold just as true.
See, let's understand one thing. The executive has basically some unofficial coalition partners that everybody knows of. And not just that, I gave a very good example of the Enforcement Directorate that there is a massive gap in raids and the number of convictions that are happening. These kind of things are to be taken care of. And who ensures justice in India? It is the Supreme Court. It is the Constitution. That is the law of the land. It is the Supreme Court that safeguards it.
No.
So let's
all of that point well taken. I'll ask Ishkaran this. I think, if you were to take an apples to apples comparison, if the judiciary says in the interest of transparency, we need to be, or at least one of our members needs to be part of the committee that decides who's going to be the Chief Election Commissioner, then why can't the executive turn around and say that we need to have one representative in the interest of transparency and fairness on the appointment of judges?
Zaka, we can have a two form of debate. One is legally and the constitutional scheme. The other is a political debate. For political debate, I think is not the appropriate forum, or the BJP has to do it. But legally and constitutionally, let's deal with it. Not only that, in practice, what will happen with this sort of an election commission appointment system, likelihood of the government and the opposition, whosoever be in power, is very rare that they will agree. So effectively, the casting vote now would be with the Chief Justice, whosoever be the Chief Justice. We can be talking 5 down the line also. So that in a constitutional scheme of things and separation of power, is that the wisest course of action? Philosophically, everybody wants transparency. Everybody knows election commission should be a very transparent, strong body. But what is the best method? But the other question is also there, that if the parliament is not willing to legislate, they still have the choice to legislate, right? End of the day, they are the affected party. But if they don't legislate, they have no option but to follow the law of the land. So the onus is squarely on the parliament or the government, which has the parliamentary majority. Do they bring in a law? And then we can discuss it, because as things stand today, why this? The logical consequence of this could also be tomorrow. It could go on to how is the governor appointed? Should the governor who is in an opposition state be appointed merely by executive, or should there be a panel? So there is no end to that logical, it can happen 5 years down the line.
Yeah, you're right. No, I think a fair point. Effectively, Ashpreet, what the judiciary has done with today's verdict is that the casting vote is always going to be that of the CJIs, because seldom will the government and the opposition agree on names to who should be the Chief Election Commissioner. So effectively, in a 3-member committee, the third person, who is the neutral arbiter, has the casting vote, and thereby, you know, in some people's view, an undue oversized influence over that decision as to who becomes Chief Election Commissioner?
You know, like you just said, that he would be the neutral person. The government would obviously, you know, would basically prioritize their own interest. And if there is a leader of opposition and there is just the Prime Minister, there would always be a chance for a stalemate to happen. There had to be a third person, and there is no person better than the Chief Justice of India. We have the very guardian of the Constitution who will oversee the matters and will ensure transparency, accountability, answerability, responsibility, which has not been seen lately in the executive. And the reason as to why we should have it in the executive,
but
not in the
inherently, you are presuming there that the Honorable Chief Justice is better equipped, better qualified to effectively, you know, to have the casting vote on who the Chief Election Commissioner is going to be, better than the Prime Minister would know or the Leader of the Opposition would know. Because like I said, seldom would the two of them agree on a name. So effectively, de facto, the CJI gets to decide who the next Chief Election Commissioner will be.
So how is there any way or anything that can help us understand what you're trying to insinuate? Is there anything that can suggest that the, you know, that he would be of particularly favoring one side or the other? No, he is neutral. He is supposed to be that way, and the CJ and the Supreme Court has been that way. It is infallible. Okay. It does what is best for the country, and not just that. Last thing.
Okay, again, I'll give Ishkaran the final word. I got 30 seconds to wrap up, Ishkaran. Again, I come back to, you know, this could open up a can of worms. Like you said, you know, governor's appointments could come into play. RBI, central bank governor appointment could come into play. A whole bunch of executive appointments could suddenly, you know, it could open up and say the CJI also needs to be part of this 3-member committee now.
That is why, Zaka, in a nutshell, philosophically, it is a good thing that there should be transparency on the Election Commission. In fact, practically also it should be there. But the question is, what should be that form of transparency? And the onus is squarely on the Parliament. Now is the moment to draw the line and say what is the transparent method which they will do. If they don't do it, this is the law of the land now, and they will have to follow this.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break. Thank you very much to Ishkaran Bhandari and to Ashpreet Kadyal. We'll see how this story plays out. But today was the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting, India playing host. It was India's G20 power play moves. While the headline is that there was no joint communique, an outcome document was adopted, and there was the chair's summary, as it were, which was outlined by Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar. We'll have more right on the other side of this quick break.
Comfortable position to win with their allies, repeat what's going to happen. So for them to come there. In Meghalaya, one of the candidates, there was a demise of a candidate right in the middle of the campaigning and polls, so that's why there are no elections there. So out of the 180 seats, we're going to see results for only 178. So 59 in Meghalaya and 1 out of 60 already done. So 179 results is what we're going to see. 1 is already declared, beg your pardon, and this is 59 and Tripura will be 60. This is a busy morning, ladies and gentlemen, because there is also the G20 summit which is on and it's happening. A lot of activity in the national capital. So we'll go across there because Maria Shakil along with Siddhant and Abhishek Jha will be joining us live with all the activity from there. So we will be hopping, skipping across multiple dimensions of the newscast, but the focus will always remain the election coverage, the news, that is the result day. What's the story that's going to be stitched? What's the narrative that's going to be stitched? Will the Northeast dictate the tone for the remaining states? All of this is what will be spoken about. Now, as far as the fight that is As far as the fight is concerned, let's try and, before we go down to our reporters, let's try and understand and start from the state which BJP is trying to retain on its own, that is Tripura. It was an amazing story that was scripted, and when they first came to power, uprooting the left. And before we get to Zaka on that, let's try and quickly look at these exit poll numbers. Now, the numbers say that the BJP will consolidate, some of them say it won't be a landslide, it will be hung. The Tipra Motha will come into play as the kingmaker. That's what the Times Now, ETG and Jan Ki Baat numbers are saying. But Zee Metrics and Access My India say that the BJP will be comfortably past the halfway number. Zaka, If Tripura is retained by the BJP and that too comfortably, it's a statement and at multiple levels, because then this third party which comes in and diffuses the vote share for the opposition. In this case, it would be Pratyodey Burman's Tipra Motha.
I think one of the fascinating things about the Tripura election is, last time the BJP came from behind and surprised everyone with not just, dislodging 30 years of left rule. Manik Sarkar's rule was dislodged, but they got a big win. They got 44 out of 60. That was a 2/3 majority. So, to be able to retain a state like that with a similar kind of a majority, if we were to go by the Access My India poll, they will be in that same ballpark. The only poll which is saying it will be a hung house and the Tipra Motha will come into play is the ETG poll. But all the other polls are saying that the BJP will retain the state and retain it rather comfortably. Remember, the halfway mark is 30. The G20 Foreign Ministers Summit is concluded with a chair summary and not a joint communique. The foreign ministers failed to come up with a joint communique because of sharp polarization among the members on the Russia-Ukraine war. And India instead issued a chair summary and an outcome document, which was agreed upon by all members, except for 2 contentious paragraphs relating to the Ukraine war. However, it's important to note that this is the first time that the foreign ministers have produced an outcome document which reflects consensus on a vast number of global issues.
We can see that the West is continuing with other ways under new conditions. They are still promoting their interests without considering the interests of the vast majority of other stakeholders of the global community.
Concerned the Ukraine conflict, on which there were divergences. So on the bulk of the issues, we were able to get an outcome document.
So the meeting came in the backdrop of fractured East-West ties because of the Ukraine war, and despite India's best attempts at bridging these gaps, there was no joint communique. However, consensus was achieved on over 90% of the issues, as was said by the External Affairs Minister. So the G20 summit's chair released a summary and an outcome document. The paragraph which mentioned the complete withdrawal of Russian forces from the territory of Ukraine, that was objected to by Russia and China. The member states without Russia and China agreed on the need to counter the impact of war on the global economy. Further, there was also objection to another point on the peaceful resolution of the conflict. The chair summary noted the use or threat to the use of nuclear weapons is inadmissible. This paragraph did not receive consensus, but apart from the Ukraine war, security and economic implications aside, all other major decisions were agreed on by all the participating foreign ministers, including tackling climate change and biodiversity, strengthening the key aspects of global health, condemning terrorism and the misuse of technology. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar held back-to-back bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the G20. First, he held bilateral talks with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, focusing on bilateral ties and pressing global issues, including the Ukraine conflict. There was no immediate readout from either side, but later Jaishankar said in a tweet that the meeting was an opportunity to review bilateral ties and discuss global issues. Soon after that meeting with Blinken, Jaishankar then went into a meeting with Qin Gang, who is the Chinese foreign minister, the new one. Qin Gang is a close aide of President Xi Jinping. He's on his first visit to India since replacing Wang Yi as the foreign minister after last year's party congress. After the bilateral, Jaishankar said that there are issues that need to be looked at and discussed very openly and candidly between both countries. And of course, there was Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who held talks with his Indian counterpart. This was, of course, a day before the G20 foreign ministers meeting. Jaishankar on Wednesday held wide-ranging talks with his Russian counterpart, focused on the Ukraine conflict, bilateral ties, and issues relating to the foreign ministers' meeting. But a rare encounter grabbed the headlines today. The top diplomat from the United States and Russia, they spoke face-to-face for the first time since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine for about 10 minutes, when Antony Blinken stressed Washington's support for a peaceful resolution to the Ukraine war and maintained the country's territorial integrity. This, according to American media reports, and the Russian Foreign Ministry said the encounter took place at Blinken's request. Now that the foreign ministers' meeting is over, the foreign ministers of the quadrilateral, that is the Quad, they will be holding a meeting tomorrow. The meeting was uncertain until the Japanese Foreign Minister, Mr. Hayashi, announced that he will be traveling to India despite the ongoing session of the Japanese Parliament. So while on the one hand there was no joint communique, but more than 90% of other outstanding issues have been agreed upon, as was signaled in that outcome document and the chair summary. But that's a wrap. Thanks very much for tuning in. Good night.
In the national capital, so we'll go across there because Mario Shakil along with Siddhant and Abhishek Jha will be joining us live with all the activity from there. So we will be hopping, skipping across multiple dimensions of the newscast, but the focus will always remain the election coverage, the news that is the result day. What's the story that's going to be stitched? What's the narrative that's going to be stitched? Will the Northeast dictate the tone for the remaining states? All of this is what will be spoken about. Now, as far as the fight that is, as far as the fight is concerned, let's try and, before we go down to our reporters, let's try and understand and start from the state which BJP is trying to retain on its own, that is Tripura. It was an amazing story that was scripted, and when they first came to power, uprooting the left. And before we get to Zaka on that, let's try and quickly look at these exit poll numbers. Now, the numbers say that the BJP will consolidate, will be, it won't. Some of them say it won't be a landslide, it will be hung. The Tipra Motha will come into play as the kingmaker. That's what the Times Now, ETG and Jan Ki Baat numbers are saying. But Zee Metrics and Access My India say that the BJP will be comfortably past the halfway number. Zaka, if Tripura is retained by the BJP and that too comfortably, it's a statement and at multiple levels, because then this third party which comes in and diffuses the vote share for the opposition. In this case, it would be Pratyodey Burman's Tipra Motha.
So I think one of the fascinating things about the Tripura election is, last time the BJP came from behind and surprised everyone with not just, dislodging 30 years of left rule. Manik Sarkar's rule was dislodged, but they got a big win. They got 44 out of 60. That was a 2/3 majority. So to be able to retain a state like that with a similar kind of a majority, if we were to go by the Access My India poll, they will be in that same ballpark. The only poll which is saying it will be a hung house and the Tipra Motha will come into play is the ETG poll. But all the other polls are saying that the BJP will retain the state and retain it rather comfortably. Remember, the halfway mark is 31, 30 plus 1. So if they are going to retain the state anywhere in these numbers, whether it's the Access numbers or whether it is the Z numbers or the Jan Ki Baat numbers, then you're pretty much looking at a kind of majority that the BJP had last time around. And remember, this is a state where they changed the chief minister, much like they did in Uttarakhand, much like they've done in other states. So that will be a strategy that could get some validation if these numbers hold and if the BJP comes back in the same ballpark as it won last time. Two factors, like I said, before I give it to you. One is this party, can they emerge kingmaker, particularly in the tribal districts? Will they eat into either the BJP votes? Remember, the BJP won big time the tribal votes in 2018, also because of the alliance with the IPFT. And left in Congress for the first time, remember, these were the traditional parties in Tripura. For the last 30-40 years, the contest was always between left and Congress until the BJP came to the scene 5 years ago and stole the show. Now, left and Congress are together. Arithmetically, it may be a formidable alliance, but elections don't always work on arithmetic.
For the left and Congress to come together, one wonders what the compulsions, political compulsions have been, that in just about 5 to 6 years or inside a decade, these two arch rivals have actually come together. The Trinamool has also tried to make inroads, but they don't seem to be getting much there. And
so far, I think almost all the polls are saying either between 0 or 3, 1. And I think that's because there's already a third player in Tripura. Unlike in Meghalaya, where the TMC is also contesting there they might have a little more impact than in Tripura. But I think in Tripura, the third player who could have impact is the Tipra Motha. And I think he will eat into both BJP votes as well as, of course, the opposition votes.
Will he pull the steam off, the pressure cooker? Does he do that job where the indigenous groups of Tripura are rallying around Tipra Motha, and there is a fair share of vote share that he pulls around 18 to 20% and pulls about 11 seats. So he becomes a contender there. What does he do? Does he join the party that is going to form the government, or does he decide to sit in opposition? It all depends on the results. If the BJP wins clearly, then we'll have to see what happens. Largely in the northeast, what happens is the regional parties back the party which is going to help them at the centre. Now, that is something, a sentiment we've seen in Meghalaya. Let's look at Nagaland right now. How does Nagaland look at this point? Now, Access My India, Zee Metries, Times Now, ETG and also Jan Ki Baat, all of them have come out and very clearly said that Nagaland is firmly in the bastion of the BJP plus. So it's very comfortably placed. They're running away with it. The NPF, which used to be formidable at one point in time, seems to be slipping further. The Congress, nowhere. And the others. Now, here again, it's a very, very interesting story. As far as Nagaland is concerned, it's again under Nephew Rio that the BJP has mounted the challenge, and the BJP plus there, if you look at it, NDPP, seem to be very, very comfortable.
Today we'll get the results of the three northeastern states, Nagaland, Meghalaya and Tripura. It's hugely important, particularly for the BJP, because they need to show that this momentum, this electoral momentum.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. It's a power-packed Thursday. Lots of action in the Indian capital, New Delhi. Leaders from 40 countries are in town for the G20 foreign ministers' meeting. On the sidelines, India spoke to China, Russia and the US, among others. This is being called the golden moment of Indian diplomacy. To lead a grouping that first came into existence after the Asian economic crisis 25 years ago, can India steer the world out of another crisis, though? The war in Ukraine is only intensifying. Despite Prime Minister Modi's appeals, the divisions in G20 prevailed today.